in my life. Can I just say this? If you're watching this, it's probably because I love you. Can I express some manly love through some piano playing? I'm sending lots of love to all the men in
Who is this
life.
guy, David?
Silliness aside, can I share
This guy. Subtitles are not available. That's unfortunate.
a little bit of something that I'm learning and a topic that's both generally kind of awful and I think particularly tricky for men
Poor guy looked like he's
to talk
just
about.
been
That issue
crying.
is sexual assault and sexual violence. It's been in the news a ton, and I think we all get exactly why it's really awful. But I say it's
Yeah,
tricky
really,
for
look
men
at
to
his
talk
eyes,
about
they're
for I
so
think
red.
two main reasons. Number one,
Not to make fun of him.
as
I mean,
men,
it's important to talk about this shit, but like, he does look like he's been crying. The poor guy.
I think we know that we're not personally affected by a lot of sexual violence or assault, but we also really personally want to be part of the solution and don't know exactly what we can do to help. Two, sometimes, though not always, I think
I
it
like this guy's TikTok editing.
feels like men are clumped together in this giant evil group, and it feels a little bit like being attacked sometimes, but it also feels like it'd be better just to not engage than say something wrong. And
He looks like a combination of like 3 different people. That I don't know. He's like 3 different like TikTok people. I can't even think of, or YouTube people. I don't know.
make the situation worse. But the truth is, this
Like,
issue
his face, his voice, and his editing are like 3 different people.
needs us. So, what can we do? I'm super excited
Again, not complaining. Just saying.
to share with you 3 things that, for me, have been really helpful in moving from inaction to kind of a empathetic
You know who he
participation.
reminds me of? Oh, fuck. What's his name? Let's see if I can find him. Oh, he does things. Damn, I can't think of his name, but he's got like a yellow background. Let me just look through my subscriptions. Got literally 1,000 subscriptions. It's not even gonna be worth it. Let's see. At least I can edit all this out. I want to say Drew Gooden, but it's not Drew Gooden. It's definitely not. I mean, maybe a little bit of Drew Gooden. Maybe a combination of Drew Gooden and the guy that I'm looking for. Who's also like a good guy. Like, it's not a bad thing. I hope he didn't change his thing. Let me just go to the full cam, because that's what I should have done from the start. No, never mind. I found the guy that I was just watching, David Mora, and I thought it was the person that I was looking for. No. Well, because I also feel like his name also starts with a D. And the fact that he had a yellow background. I don't know if David Mora's yellow background made me think of this other guy having a yellow background, but there's a lot of people who have yellow backgrounds. A lot of my subscriptions have yellow backgrounds. I know this is riveting content, but it'll, oh man, imagine if I don't even find him. Not JJ McCall. Maybe him a little bit. Another yellow background guy. Is it this guy? James. No. Definitely not him. I don't know why it's on. Let's see. I have no idea. Here it is. Okay, so alright, there we go. This guy, I feel like reminds me of this guy, Kunken Dan Dastner. He's just like a nice dude. Yeah, look at this guy.
Hey everyone, good to see you.
He's got a totally different voice, but I don't know. I feel like these guys have very similar
Take off your shoes
vibes.
before you come in. I made it weird. By now you've seen.
See, he's just like a nice guy. Just like a soft Nice guy, but not like a nice guy, but like a genuinely nice guy, like a decent.
And creating a safer and more just world when it comes to issues of sexual assault and violence. Number one, think
I
more
feel
about
like this
violence
guy and Curtin would get along very well.
and its spectrum. Number two, unite as men and
Okay,
embrace.
wait, so what's
think
number
more
one?
about violence and its when it comes to issues of sexual assault and violence. Number one, think more about violence and its spectrum. Number two,
Think more about violence in its spectrum is number one. Okay, so yeah, because more, violence isn't just hurting people; it's words and harmful systems.
two,
and things
unite
like that.
as men and embrace silence and ignorance. Number three, compliment women.
Embrace
Sounds surprising. That's good because
silence and ignorance. That's an interesting one.
silence and ignorance. Number three, compliment women. Sounds surprising.
Compliment women. Okay. Yeah, I see where he's going with the surprising, because you can be complimenting without committing sexual harassment. That'd be nice.
Surprising? That's good because I was trying really hard to make them sound confusing and surprising. Number
They
one,
were.
think about
Definitely the second
violence and violence on a spectrum. One extreme example when we think about sexual assault is rape. On the other extreme, we might think about, say, an objectifying comment made in a workspace. Why has it been so helpful to think about this on a spectrum for me? I think despite how one thing like maybe catcalling might seem fairly low risk and low harm, and something like an assault might seem extremely dangerous, I think for women, when they hear a catcall, despite the fact that
they add up, obviously. Like, women have to deal with this shit all the fucking time, constantly with their appearance critique. Like I was just talking about your beautiful eyes that looked like they were crying, my friend here. Which again, no shade at all. It's just a jerk observation.
they're not
Sounds
necessarily
rude. I
being
didn't mean it
assaulted.
in
Hearing
offensive
someone
way.
catcall and do nothing sounds exactly like someone catcalling and then moving on to more extreme measures. And even if you know
Yeah, well, the best I heard was like, you always treat a gun like it's loaded, whether it's loaded or not. And if you see a gun, you can't tell if it's loaded or not. And that's how women see men, is as guns that are potentially loaded or unloaded. So you have to treat them all, as if they're loaded, because they gotta be safe. That's safety. A gun that's loaded and you don't know that it's loaded is gonna cause problems. Very
a
likely.
person who say is catcalling
And again,
is
if the people who seem like the type, if it was only the people, there's definitely creeps who seem like creeps, but the people who get away with it are the people who don't seem like the type and then do it anyway. So, yeah, the loaded guns that look unloaded, like the one without the the magazine in there, and but with the one in the chamber,
definitely not going to go any further. It still touches on
Or
the
even
same experience
else.
and idea behind all of these forms of sexual assault and sexual violence. This idea that women are not really human beings with feelings and dignity that need to be respected.
This is
But that they're
absolutely true.
Actually more of an
that's how
object
people view them.
for you to get pleasure from. It sends the message that women aren't safe. And that lack of safety, triggered by a small act, touches on that same fear and that same concept.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think I've subconsciously accepted it as a spectrum, but it is worth bringing up that definitely, like small things add up, and big things aren't great either. But like having a bunch of small things sucks too. Like sometimes it would be nice to just have, especially because the little things are what keep you on your toes too. So like, I feel so bad for women constantly having to deal with just like, especially criticism too, because like women can just be criticized, they just get more criticism just because they're women, like for no other reason than just the fact that they're female, which is like crazy ridiculous. And it's just true, they get more views if they're attractive or whatever, but like also not, sometimes it's just like, it's just ridiculous. Like it just sucks that like some of the, we of course live in a world where engagement is king, so even if you get a bunch of degrading comments, like you're technically getting engagement, but it's like it's still not fun. Like it just sucks, and it's
present
really
a big
infuriating.
Number
And they
two,
add up.
I
Like,
tried.
I'm sure there's probably a woman who's like, God, I wish that I could just get like assaulted without actually wishing that, because of all the fucking little things that add up. Just because what I was trying to get at before is like, sometimes you don't actually know, and it's a lot easier to just like tell if some guy is like catcalling you or something like that. Like, oh, at least that's easier than some guy who's like could be like, you know, shit that's like subtle and like, you know, plays with your head. Like, ah, that's so fucking annoying. It's gotta be so stressful.
Try to unite in my manhood with other men and embrace ignorance.
You know what would be really great is if you can embrace subtitles. I would really appreciate that. But yeah, I want to hear
Now,
about this
I think-
embracing of ignorance. The embracing of our ignorance, just accepting the fact that we're ignorant. That's a reasonable thing, I
Often,
suppose.
we feel like we're being attacked when issues of sexual assault done by men are brought up. So I think it's very easy for me to be like, this is awkward, I don't want to say the
Yeah, taking it personally.
wrong thing. I'm just going to agree, yes, oh, it's bad, 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 bad. Let's wait for the conversation to change soon. But I think the truth is, when these issues come up, it's a space of a lot of ignorance. I actually don't know what it's like to be catcalled or to feel unsafe. So I think the invitation I've been trying to accept is to both try to have some silence when these issues are brought up so that I can really listen in a way that I might miss otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. I'll agree. I mean, I can't disagree with that. Obviously, listen to people and accept that you don't understand people's shoes. Like, you don't know what it's like to be them. But it's not hard to, like... Well, actually, it is for some people. But I was going to say, like, imagine the context of, you know, like... So, like imagine just being constantly like told about like constantly being reflected upon your appearance, like as a guy. Just like imagine like you can be like, oh, I wouldn't care, but like, you know, like nobody likes being pointed out like all their like flaws or anything. Like actually having to like it's really easy to just sort of not care about. I mean, guys do have to care about their appearance obviously too, because it's good to, you know, take pride in your looks or do your best to be hygienic and look good. But, like, it's just something that, yeah, I think, more than just listening, I think what I'm trying to say is just understand that you don't understand. Just be like, I cannot comprehend it. And if you accept that you cannot understand it, it becomes a little bit easier to sort of like listen and then know what to do. So maybe that's not the best way of explaining
And
it.
also
Let's
to
see what he
claim
says.
ignorance. If someone says, oh yeah, I used to run at night, but now I feel unsafe, rather than being like, oh yeah, whatever, being like, whoa, why do you feel unsafe if you feel comfortable sharing? Or like, I don't
That's
actually
great. Okay, yes, that's maybe what I was trying to say. Ask questions. Don't just listen necessarily. Do listen, but also like, yeah, be like, actually care. Like try to understand. Like know that you will never understand, but do your best to actually understand, because you will understand some things and you can like get the idea in your head. Like be like imagine what it's like, even if you don't understand it, just like imagine the idea of not feeling safe at night if that's something that doesn't apply to you. Like how fucked is that you just it's a problem that you now would have to deal with. And so it's like, shit, be grateful if you don't have to deal with that, and be, you know, empathetic and understanding when people do have to deal with that. And then, you know, if you want to be manly, especially since we're talking about men here, if you can, I mean, you can offer to be like, you know, be there, but but offer. You don't necessarily have to step up and be like, I'll guard you, you know. Like sometimes that's helpful, but most of the time probably not. I would say at least just be like, damn, I'm really sorry that happened. Like that just sucks. I'm really sorry to hear that. Yeah.
understand that, but I want to be here to support you.
I mean, it sounds almost anticlimactic, but sometimes that's enough to just be like, wow, I'm really sorry that happens, that you have to deal with that. Like, I wish that wasn't true, but, you know, I'm here for you as a friend, and actually be there as a friend. That's the other thing, too, is, like, it's hard if you have, you know, if you're an incel or something like that, to imagine, you know, being friends with a girl without any, like, sexual tension because you've never had sex, which is why I think we need to have more of a sex-positive society, so that, you know, and take away sex as, like, a thing that, you know, men are trying to get from women and make it a mutual thing. And also expand the concept besides just, penetrative, heteronormative P and V kind of as the definition, and just enjoy, physical contact and things like that. But also, I don't know, the important thing is empathy, is just trying to imagine, like, and like, if you, I don't know, if you want to do something, try to actually imagine what it would be like, because it's like, if you want to catcall somebody, like, you probably wouldn't appreciate necessarily being, like, having people constantly, when you're not expecting it, like, yell something at you, which, again, if you don't accept, means that they could at any moment pull over and be like a big strong, like, imagine weakness. Like, I know this isn't a great example, but just imagine, like, having to fight somebody who is physically stronger and more capable than you, and you just can't, and you're gonna get your ass kicked and potentially even, like, die or something like that. And just, like, that's the position that a lot of women are in sexual, harassment situations. It's like they physically cannot do anything about it. So it's like, damn, like, just, you have to try to comprehend the feeling of powerlessness. But again, also, I'll just let him speak too.
I think claiming ignorance is one of the most powerful things, because it gives us the space to receive new information, to really
yes, as he says here, like, just as I was, being very, long in the tooth about, just, like, accept that you don't understand. That's such a great example, actually. Yeah, just be like, let other people speak.
Empathetically and even just practically support women. Number 3, compliment women. When I say compliment women, I mean compliment women not on their appearance, but literally the anything else within the vast array of all the complexities that...
Yeah, I've done this for a while. You can compliment women on their appearance, but not in a non-sexual way, by being like, "Oh, I like your outfit. Looks great." Or, "Actually, you make that outfit look great." Is a great flirty line, I think, too. But again, flirting is not always the context that you want to do. If you want to compliment women, just be like, "Good job. Nice going. I think you're a great person. I like you. You bring joy to people. The kind of stuff that you would want to hear, like, "Oh, I think that you're cool and you're nice. You're a good person." That's what people like to hear.
That could be in a woman's life. This, surprisingly, is actually really hard. Why? Look at a woman's profile picture on Facebook, or look at a fairy tale. Everything that's usually said has completely to do with
so annoying.
appearance.
It's
honestly,
like,
sometimes
I've honestly, as soon as I noticed that, it's like a Where's Waldo effect, where, like, if you've ever seen a Where's Waldo book or anything like that, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, like, you're scanning the 2 giant pages until you finally find the guy, and then you can look on the opposite page, and you can still see him out of the corner of your eye, Mr. Waldo there. You can't unsee it. So, like, everything in media almost entirely is about women's appearances. It's so ridiculous. It's like, God, it's just like, oh wow, she's so beautiful and perfect, and like, just, it's like, there are, like, people like being pretty, but, like, there are other things to talk about besides appearance.
Think about complimenting women, all I can think of are, "You're beautiful."
But you can say that sometimes. That's the key, is don't go too far in the other direction, because unfortunately we do live in that society, and so that stuff is ingrained, and so, it's unfortunately somewhat helpful to, not unfortunately, but it just, there's nothing wrong with complimenting someone's appearance, but, remember that they are more than their looks. This is so crazy that we have to have this, like, women are human beings, like, that, right? Like, it is so fucking crazy that in 2022 or whatever the year is, I can't, I'm like, I'm just thinking the years count up. I feel awful. Like, 2023, I couldn't even imagine. I feel like shit's just getting worse and worse progressively. Yeah, fucking Christ, people are human beings. They aren't just one-dimensional objects. It sounds so, like, reductive, but it is actually, it's like genuinely true.
You're gorgeous. You're smart and beautiful. Oh, you look really
Well,
good.
smart isn't just beauty. I mean, smart and beautiful is, you know, a nice combination, but again, being smart is good. That's a good thing. Complimenting a woman on her smarts is nice. But again, remember, not a woman complimenting a person. Remove gender from the equation. Remove sex from the equations. Gender and sex are two different things. So remove gender. Sex can still be there because, again, you know, vaginas and penises are different things. But, like, you know, you can just remove, just think of them as a person, as a human being. I think that's the easiest thing. Is stop thinking of them as a woman and start thinking of them as a person, which is so incredibly reductive to say sounding, but it is, like, it's so true. Just like they're a human being. They're just like you. They have complex thoughts and emotions just like everybody else.
Good. You may be a little bit rusty.
You know, appearance is nice. Try to avoid that, though. You know, don't let that be the first thing that comes out of your mouth, you know, if you're going to compliment. You know, be like, you know, but there's nothing wrong. People like hearing, you look great today. I like your outfit, you know? That's not a bad thing to say. But again, if that's the only thing you're saying, especially to a woman, it's not great. But, you know, if you're doing that, you're good. Sorry, I was just looking at the chat, which I should probably have the chat open. But to react to whoever said that, what show is this? This is just me reacting to stuff, if you're still there. And you know, David Mora. Anyway, who's a YouTuber, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, like I said, you know, human beings, we like our appearance, but also, again, you know, there's other dimensions to people's personalities.
On complimenting women on anything other than their appearance. So let me give us a little warm up. Here are some compliments for women in my life.
I love this guy. He's so sweet. I love him. He's so, like, again, he's like, I want to, like, I don't know. I want to give him a high five. He's got this hand on the screen there.
You are one of the strongest and most skilled and natural leaders I've ever met. Adiel, I think you...
Yeah, like think about what you would like to hear and say that to somebody else. Whatever you like. Whether it's like, oh, you know, like, damn, you're really good at video games or something like that, to keep it, you know, super, like, you know, incel-y or whatever. Like, damn, you're a super hardcore gamer, or like, I really, you know, you have great taste in anime or something like that. Be like, dang, you have good taste in shows. You know, whatever you would want to hear, that's a good place to start. Now, that's not really going to always apply, but that's a great way to start, in my opinion.
You are one of the most emotionally intelligent people I've ever met. Tina.
Yeah.
You are such a talented...
Because I think that's what he's doing right now, is he's imagining, like, oh, what would I like to hear? Because he definitely, I guarantee, would be super happy. And my man, David Mora, you are definitely like, one of the most emotionally intelligent people I've probably ever met.
Amazing
and I've never even met
programmer
you,
and engineer. I feel really grateful to get to learn alongside you. When we value
Look at this guy.
Oh
my God. He sounds like a freaking... He would be an amazing, like, social worker or something like that.
Are and not for how they appear. We both implicitly take a stand against misogyny and sexism, which says women are just objects. But we also, at the same time, shift the way that we ourselves as men think about the woman in our lives. Oh, wait, so now I can't compliment any woman on her nice choice of shoes or her makeup or her clothing.
He's so animated. He's like, I feel like I've met this person before. It's so funny. Like this type of person, which is somewhat reductive also. But you know what? People do fit into categories sometimes. It's okay. But, you know, you have to not reduce people. You have to only include them. You know, you can put people in categories, but as long as it's constructive and not reductive.
Or the way she's expressing herself, it's all evil now, I guess. Well, not exactly. The key point we're exploring here that I've been learning is that our appearance derives worth from us, and not us from our appearance. If you want to give a compliment about someone's appearance...
What? Hold on. I'm going to have to listen to that again.
Us, and not us from our appearance.
So, our appearance derives... What?
derives worth from us.
So our appearance derives worth from us, and not
us from our appearance.
Okay, so I think what he's saying is, yeah, it's well, I mean, obviously what he's saying is it's a physical thing, but like, you know, it's not. Well, I'll let him finish. How about
If you
that?
want to give a compliment about someone's appearance, that's fine. But maybe here's a more interesting way to do it. Whoa, Abigail, I love your business attire. It's always...
You know what I love, fucking Dave? Your ability to come up with names. I'm really bad at coming up with names, but the fact that you've used, as far as I can tell, a different name for each compliment, that's pretty good.
this mix of sophistication and adventurousness. It's so you.
Listen
Great
to him.
rule of
He's
thumb.
such... Oh my god. I like, he's such a drama queen, but in like a great way. I just love it. He's so... I love
If
it.
you can't end your compliment about someone's appearance with, it's so you probably should rethink how you're complimenting. Oh, wow, you've got a sexy body, Sally.
But like, yo, your outfit is so you is like an okay thing to say. That is like, you know, it's like, it feels, it like it fits your personality, you know, like that would be awesome. That's fine too. But I guess that's still not so much an appearance thing. Like, oh, your nose is so you. That is kind of a weird. Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, your body is so you. But like, if you're a bodybuilder, like that's kind of okay. I'm not trying to deconstruct here, but like, you know,
It's so you. Note that
I mean, it is though. I get what you're going for, Dave, here, but like, I feel like, again, it's something. It's not a part of them. It's just like it's an immutable characteristic versus something that actually results in their personality. Like, your appearance does not define your personality, but your likes and dislikes, your you know, hobbies, your thoughts, your interests, and up to and including your, you know, clothes and how you dress and stuff like that. Those could be aspects of you, and like, you know, your piercings, your glasses, if you have the ability to afford those, the ability to accessorize, which is becoming harder to reach every day with, you know, the economy as it is. But again, you know, yeah, compliment people's personalities and like internal aspects before you compliment their outside. I mean, yeah, like a person's appearance has nothing to do with their personality, which is what I think he's trying to say.
that saying it's so you at the end of a compliment is super hard to do if you're giving it to a total stranger who's just walking by. Because
That's a great point too, which is also like, but you can say that about someone's outfit if you like their shirt. Like, again, you wouldn't be like, that's so you to somebody you don't know, but you'd be like, that's so me. I like that. So there's that. You see yourself.
the heart of sexual
Something
violence
that
and
you like.
assault is objectification of women. Then our most powerful
And that's the thing, is I think that's what he was trying to say with the appearance and the so you bit, is like objectification versus like actual like, you know, substantive compliments, you know, like when, again, reduction or construction, like building people up or reducing them down. So, you know, if you compliment somebody on their appearance, it's not something they can control, which is, I think, what I've been trying to say too, is they don't really have as much control over that. They have some control, but you can't really control how you look. You can only control it to a certain extent, but you also can't control your personality, I suppose, too. But you can like work on it. But like, I don't know, like, again, you wanna. There's no depth in an appearance. It's boring. It's been done. Think of it like that. I don't know if that helps. You know, it's like they've probably heard that before. Try to be original if you can. You know, don't if it's the first thing that pops in your head, it's probably something like they probably already have know about it, and B, they've probably heard it before, and, you know, it goes on from there. Again, sometimes, you know, the first thing that pops into your head, if they're asking for advice or something like that, might be useful. But again, if it's the first thing that you think of or notice, it's probably not very helpful. Whatever it is, whatever the first thought is.
response
Like
isn't
me talking about his beautiful eyes that looked like they were crying before the video. Like that probably wasn't very helpful, but I mean helpful. But you know, again, I meant it in a nice way.
decrying the objectification of others so as to appear not part of the problem, but instead to boldly, lovingly see the humanity.
Look at his. I just love his passion. He's like, you know, instead of, you know, objectification and standing by, you know, boldly, lovingly, going forward. Yeah, it's just go,
talent,
Dave, go
richness, power of the woman in our lives.
You can tell he
Part of the
seems
solution.
he's just really passionate about this, and I think that's what I'm catching on to. I really like his passion.
For me, sometimes that means understanding how a woman's experience of violence, whether big or small, falls on a bigger spectrum of related violence, and how there's more going on than meets my manly eyes. Sometimes that means giving myself the gift of silence, taking the space to listen and understand an unfamiliar experience. But most of all, I think, for me, it means
It's also just, I think what's making me laugh a bit about it, obviously he said his manly eyes, and I'm not going to compliment on that. He's got beautiful manly eyes. I love him. I feel like I'm harping too much on that. I think, okay, fine, I'll compliment it. He said manly eyes. He's got incredibly manly eyes. It's very manly to cry. I just made a joke about it. But he's just so proud of himself. And he means well, at least. And I like that. That's good. He's trying to help, and he's doing good. And, I mean, there's nothing really wrong with anything he said, so. Other than the fact that you can, again, compliment somebody on their appearance without it being a problem. But, you know, that's not really the intention of the video. That's my reaction to it.
means celebrating and affirming the incredible talent and worth of women around me. And honestly, that's just really fun.
He's just so, like, artsy. I think I just love it. And he plays the piano. Alright.
Mark
Next video. How the rich steal from the poor. Richard Wolff. Anyway, yeah, so it was, what were his three things? I don't know. But anyway, basically, you know, appearance is not that deep. You know, it's only, beauty's only skin deep, as we've all heard. But it's true. You know, all that stuff. But yeah, you know, men actually can stand up for sexual violence, which is good. You know, it's okay, but it involves listening and treating women like they are, which is as human beings and not just as women, because that's just one dimension of their personality.
Marx was interested in the relationship of people in the process of production.
That is absolutely true. Yes. Moving on, Marx was definitely related to the people and their relationship to the means of production, to production in general.
That he's interested in the factory, the office, the store. What goes on, and by that he means what are the relationships among the people that come together in a workplace.
Yeah.
And what he analyzes is that there is something going on there that has not been adequately understood.
Yeah, basically what he's trying to say is, I mean, he's doing pretty good. I mean, like, how people actually relate to the workplace, in that, like, you know, the workers use their labor to produce whatever product or service the company is doing, and then the owners just sort of siphon money off of that and throw a little bit at the workers for their time and labor, which is pretty effed up. Like, it's not cool.
And that has
Because
not
the owners make all the money while sitting around doing nothing but being able to bark orders at the people below them who are actually doing the work, which is pretty
been
not cool.
adequately addressed as an object needing transformation. Now, what does he mean? The answer is exploitation, which he defines mathematically in the following way. Whenever in a society, any society,
Thank goodness.
you organize
Subtitles
people,
are good.
adults, not the children, not the sick, But
However, I mean, capitalism has no problem with exploiting children and the sick and the elderly and, you know, the infirmed and causing harm to people, making them sick and unhealthy and things like that. So it's actually a surprising distinction that he's making there, in that it does not exist under capitalism. Those people are perfectly likely to be exploited.
healthy adults.
We had to establish child labor laws to prevent capitalist exploitation of children, and you know, we have workplace safety laws to prevent them from making, you know, and proper, you know, PPE, personal protection equipment for people who are working dangerous jobs. At least we try to, but you know, the capitalists do whatever they can to void those regulations, so that, or go around them as best they can, because that way they can take more money from the profit made by their workers, whether they be children, sick, elderly, or just working age healthy adults. Doesn't matter. Or slaves, for that matter. I mean, there's nothing in capitalism against slavery. There's the definition of capitalism is simply the private ownership of the means of production. There's no distinction for slavery. It's like, that's still totally fine. Like, you can have workers that you don't pay, and those are just slaves.
In the following way: a big block of them, a clear majority, work. That is, they use their brains and their muscles to transform nature.
Work, labor. That's how Marx uses the term labor. I like to use the term labor. Work is a great term, though. It's also very typical. Like, most people use the term work, so work is good.
A tree into a chair, a sheep into a woolen sweater, whatever. In every human community, Marx argues, there are the people who do that work, but they always produce more chairs, more sweaters, more hamburgers than they themselves consume, whatever their standard of living. Doesn't have to be low, could be medium.
That is an interesting observation. That if you produce things, particularly in Marx's time, factories were big. I mean, most factories are overseas now, so most people don't even work in factories anymore. It's a lot of service. But again, you know, people are providing a lot more service than they themselves need. It's the argument still applies.
Could be hard.
I mean, if you work at a food place, you know, you produce more food than most people eat, even if it's made to order. You know, a lot of it does end up going to waste.
But they always produce more than they themselves consume. That more, by the way, Marx, when he writes this, uses the German word mehr, M-E-H-R, which is the English equivalent of more. It's the more. That more got badly translated into the word surplus. Shouldn't have been, but it was.
Okay, so yeah, he is. I mean, well, what I just said was true for the most part. Yeah, he's talking about surplus, like labor value and profit, which is where the rich get, you know, which is where the owners get their cut, because the workers, you know, they produce the entire time that they're there. At least that's the idea. And you know, while they're getting paid for their time for a certain rate, they are obviously making more. That you literally have to sell your labor, as in, when you work, what you're doing is you're selling your time and your labor at a loss to the owner of the business, and it has to be at a loss because otherwise there'd be no profit. So you have to, in order to generate profit, you have to make more money for the company than you're getting out of it. Oh, I'm accidentally moving the
By the way, by German and English people doing the translations.
What's the difference between more and surplus? Is there a nuanced?
Yeah, because surplus has a notion of it's discretionary, it's sort of extra.
And I like this, because in a socialist society there wouldn't be surplus value, because we wouldn't be wasting things. We'd only be making them as needed. So there wouldn't be any, you know, because the goal isn't profit. Under, you know, post-capitalism, the goal is benefiting society. So there's no benefit in society when you create excess stuff. Now, when you create excess stuff under capitalism and you manage to sell it, then you make money off of it. So there's incentive to create the so-called surplus, but which is, I believe, what he's explaining here.
He's not making a judgment that it's
It's
extra.
a simple math equation.
Yes, very simple.
One minus
Literally.
the other.
Yes, x minus
Reduce.
y.
I feel like I like Lex's trying to help here, but I feel like he still doesn't quite understand, unfortunately, which is unfortunate. Yeah, like it's unfortunate because Richard Wolff is really good. I don't know why.
That's right.
It seems like he's not necessarily explaining things as well as he could here.
X is the total output. Y is the consumption by the producer. Therefore, x minus y equals S, the surplus. Exactly.
So X is the total amount minus Y equals S, the surplus. But, like, that doesn't really help the point. It's just that, like, again, what I had just explained is that, yeah, the surplus wouldn't exist in a post-capitalist society because the point of capitalism is to create that surplus so that the owner can then make money off of that surplus. While still paying the laborers the same amount, the workers that whatever agreed upon wage is. Whereas in a society without private property, but again private ownership of the means of production, private meaning for business purposes, for profiting purposes. When we move past that and we just have personal property and public property, then the surplus is kind of unnecessary. I mean, the surplus, if anything, would just go to everybody so that to increase everybody's standard of living. And when it does that, there's no surplus. It's just, we're creating how much we want. And if it's too much, then, like say we're making too many sweaters, then it's just wasteful. There's no reason to make these sweaters. Whereas, it's more profitable for the business to make a bunch of extra sweaters, try to sell as many of them as possible. And then if you can't, they generally just burn them because they can make them for such a cheap amount. And in fact, they oftentimes destroy them to create artificial scarcity, even though they can create as many as they need.
Exactly. Now, Marx argues, the minute you understand this, you will ask the following question. Who gets the surplus?
Yeah, again, the surplus goes to the capitalist. It's pretty, because that's what capitalism is about. It's about creating that surplus labor value. But again, I feel like he's doing a bad job of explaining it because the surplus is not necessarily in the amount of stuff that's created. It's the profit that comes back. It's the fact that when you work, I love his he's looking at me like, he looks really worried. But anyway, you create, again, when you work, you're selling your labor, your time, at a loss to the capitalist, so that the capitalist owner of the business can make money off of your work, and you're literally selling it for less than it's worth, because by definition you have to create that surplus through your labor, which is what he's not explaining, and why I'm so confused, and why this is not necessarily a great video, which is kind of sad, because again, I learned a lot from this guy, from his other stuff, from Democracy at Work. So it's kind of sad that he went on this. He had a really great opportunity here, and it kind of didn't really work out.
Who gets this extra stuff that is made but not consumed by those who made it? And Marx's answer is, therein lies one of the great shapers of any society. How is that organized? For example, who?
I mean, there's two different forms of surplus too in industrial society, which is the surplus of the ability to create much more stuff than we need, and for example, sweaters, cars, whatever. Commodity items, we can create them industrially on an industrial level, and that creates a huge surplus of that amount of stuff. But there's also the surplus value, which comes from the workers doing their job and being paid less than they're making for the company.
Gets it.
Because if they were paid what they made, there'd be no profit, and they would be paid you'd be business owners make hundreds of times more than the average worker, so you'd be making a lot if you made what, I mean, again, even if you made like, even just making half of what you make. Generally, honestly, people don't even make a tenth of what they produce, that in terms of their wages. It's awful. I wonder actually how much, if there's an actual statistic. Well, I mean, let's see, wages versus productivity. That's the main thing. That's the chart of, I mean, so yeah, so real wages staying the same, and the productivity goes up like essentially linearly, whereas the wages are staying the same. So every year you're actually making a smaller percentage than was, you're making a smaller percentage of what you create, because again, technology improves productivity, so you're able to produce a lot more for the company, but you still get paid virtually the same. This one only goes up to 15. But what was interesting, especially in 55 to 65, when the government was subsidizing a lot of things, and during the post-war baby boomer years, wages actually were above productivity, which is an interesting thing. And then something happened in the mid-70s, which was Reagan, and boom, wages just stopped growing basically, which is really wild. This one goes up to 13, so it's not even as I wonder if there's one that goes up to 2020. But yeah, it is interesting that there was a point where wages actually were better than productivity for a little bit. But yeah, they have remained stagnant and actually gone down in some cases.
What are they asked, if anything, to do with it in exchange for getting it?
So my question here is, Richard Wolff, why are you not explaining the difference between surplus labor value and the surplus production? Because I think that that's getting really confused. And let's see if we look at the comments here. Lex had some chances here to ask some very powerful questions. For example, where does competency fit in this framework? If I do things better, do I get more? If I do more, do I get to decide what I do with the more that I get? And actually, if you had a democratic workplace, for instance, if we brought democracy into the workplace, which is what all that socialism is just democratic ownership of the means of production, basically going from autocratic ownership, meaning that the boss gets to decide everything, to the workers who actually do the work get to decide, and the boss, is voted on, you vote for the boss and everything like that, then you generally do. If you do better, you probably do get paid more, because, everybody would recognize that, you're doing more because you would actually be doing more. So and if not, who decide what happens to the more that I earned? And again, it's democratically decided. And it would be easy to move from business to business if you don't like the one there, because again, you have democratic voting power of how the business is run. And so I mean, really, I feel like it's more on Wolff here, because he knows the answer to these questions and he's just explaining it so poorly, which is really, really sad to see. The only thing I agree with Wolff on is greater efficiency through technological advances in robotics will always leave the workers redundant, which without a soft result. I mean, again, we're literally staving off full on automation, because then workers wouldn't have to work anymore, and we literally, capitalism does not have an answer to that, because capitalism requires wage labor, and that's why I said at the beginning, that's why slavery isn't a big deal. So you can quote unquote enslave robots, you don't have to pay them or anything, but they're not really enslaved because they're machines designed to do a task. And they but basically, when human labor becomes redundant, that should be then the result of that labor of the mechanical, the robot, the automated labor should be democratically available to all, not just the people who own the machines and the companies, because then they're just going to charge for it so that they can have a better life than other people, when we all could have a great life, including the people who are the 1%. Like, they could still have their same level of freedom. It's just that everybody else would have it too. So at this point, it really is just like, most things you don't even have to take a cut. I mean, some people will, but like, again, once you get to a certain point of billionaire status, you can't really, like, once you've bought like 5 houses, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can basically buy whatever you want. You've got 5 mansions, 6 mansions. Like, what are you gonna do? Buy a 7th? Like, okay, like what? You don't have to work. Once you don't have to work anymore for the rest of your life, you really, there's no reason to exploit people more. In fact, like, if anything, you should then pay your workers more, because you'll have happier workers and you'll get better. But we live in a society of, radical self-interest from, the neoliberal 70s, which really screwed everything over. And then the end of the Cold War, which, again, destroyed everything and made us think that capitalism is the only possibility, which is why we have, comments like this, and why Richard has to explain this stuff. And unfortunately, this is just a very unfortunate, this is just a very bad explanation. There's no way around it, which is just sad. Richard is quite getting to the core. It reminds me of Jordan P. Really? Jordan P. Richard reminds you of Jordan Peterson? Okay. How far can you go into the left before it gets ugly? Let's start with property and determining who decides what is mine and what is yours. Well, again, I can't tell if he's agreeing with Richard here or not, but again, it's like, how far is too far? It's like, I don't know, how much democracy is too much democracy? It seems like it's kind of it's sort of a false premise. I mean, the problem is, the issues with what we view as the left is that most of them were actually not the left. They were the right. They were fascist. I mean, there was a lot of leftist stuff within the USSR, and of course, China had a foundation, I guess, of Marxism and like leftism and post-capitalism. But really, what they've done is they've created the state capitalism, where instead of eliminating private property, which is profit property, you've just made the owners move from private citizens who own the businesses to the government now owns all the businesses, which is state capitalism. That's not communism. That's not socialism. Socialism is democratic ownership of the means of production, where the workers own the business and get, or at least, they have democratic say in the business, which is basically the same as owning it. And the owners could be a part of that, and they could have an equal share with the rest of the workers too, and still not have to work. Like, they could still own it and not have to work, but isn't capitalism all about hard work? Like, shouldn't you reward hard work and not reward ownership? Because that's all capitalism rewards, is ownership. It's a lie that it rewards hard work. The hardest working people are the poorest in any example under capitalism. Let's see. Then we have Lex giving us quality and somebody I would have never known about, but also I can immediately hear the confidence in an ability and wants me to know more. And hey, honestly, Ancient Zig, check out Richard Wolff. He's got better stuff, but this is just such a bad video.
What's their social role? For example, here we go now. If you get this, and you get the core of it anyway. And I don't charge much. The workers themselves could get it.
I feel like, oh man, the fact that he made a joke. I mean, it's funny to be like, oh, I've got all this knowledge and I don't charge much. That's great. But dude, you really, I don't know how somebody who's talked about the same stuff for so long should have a refined and easy way of saying it. It shouldn't be this nebulous, difficult to communicate.
Less than lawyers.
Right, that's right. The workers themselves could get it.
Yes.
That's the closest Marx comes to a definition of communism.
Let's see. So when he's saying it, he means the. Let's see.
Who with it
I'm assuming the surplus.
in exchange for getting it? What's their social role? To do with who gets it? What?
So any society.
How is that organized? For example, who gets it?
It being the surplus again, I'm thinking. Let's see. Therein lies the great shapes of how any society. Who gets the surplus, right?
Therein lies one of the great shapers of any society. How is
Yeah,
that?
again, I'm just rewinding and saying because it's like it's just confusing. I don't understand this. But anyway, Richard, come on. There's surplus value and there's surplus production. Both of which could be solved by democratizing the workplaces. You could have said this super succinctly and super easily. I've learned this from you, man. Like, this is how I feel, my dude. Like, why are you getting all worked up with this face? Like, you could have just answered his question. I mean, or I don't even know if he asked the question. The video just kind of, let's see. I think it just started with Wolf here. Blah blah, like streaming, like and
Marx
subscribe.
was interested in the
Yeah, so
relationship.
it just starts with, it's just Wolf talking. I don't know if maybe he's just edited poorly here, but it's just really sad that, like, he can't explain the concept of surplus. Like, dude, I learned what surplus was from Richard Wolff. So, like, the fact that he can't explain it is really crazy to me.
If you don't have disposition over it, so the lot.
This has to do not just with who gets it, but more importantly, who gets to decide who gets it.
Well, who?
Yeah, again, deciding surplus. But again, I think that's what he was saying at the beginning is why surplus is a bad word, is because, again, it's like, who gets the surplus? There wouldn't be any surplus under socialism or communism, the difference being that communism, everybody owns everything democratically, whereas socialism, it's just the workers. Under socialism, the workers own the businesses democratically, and under communism, everybody owns everything democratically. Communism being a stateless, classless, moneyless society, which is why the USSR and definitely China do not fit those definitions of those words. They cannot be called communist because they never achieved communism. They, for the most part, didn't really achieve socialism. The USSR did a better job in certain points, for sure, but unfortunately they fell, which is really sad because Russia is hyper-capitalist now, as well as China, again, because they aren't leftist. They are state capitalists. So
Who gets it and who gets to decide what to do?
So who gets it and who gets to decide what to do with it? Again, socialism, the workers, communism, everybody, by democratically deciding how much they make and democratically, and also, again, when during this stuff, this also answers the automation problem because less work is good under socialism and capitalism because people have to work less but they still make the same amount and their standard of living goes up. Whereas under capitalism, the only people who benefit from the automation is the capitalist because they're the ones who get it, who get the surplus value, and get to decide what to do with it. Whereas under socialism, it's democratically decided among the workers, and communism among the people.
With it.
Right.
Because
And
you
it's
can't
like, Richard, you know this stuff. Why am I the one explaining this when you could have done this so much easier?
decide it if you don't
I
have
learned from you. I learned it from you, man, Dad. I learned it from you.
disposition over it. So just the logic of the word sequence. It's produced. Marx uses the
It's just like they're just talking about nothing.
word appropriated. In other words, whose property, who gets.
He's just using big words. Like, why are you doing this, Richard? You know, like, you're so good at explaining these things. Why are you not explaining them?
To decide, if you like, what happens. All that property ever meant is who gets to decide and who's excluded.
And again, under capitalism, the people who get to decide are the capital owners, whereas under socialism, it's the workers, and under communism, it's everybody democratically deciding these things because they all own them equally. Or, however they democratically decide to distribute it.
A clean
but
definition.
not representatively, but actually democratically, because it would be really easy under a communism society to just give everybody a cell phone and let them vote on the issues that matter to them, and they wouldn't care about the issues that don't. So yeah, and there'd be no incentive to lie about these issues, because again, you're not doing this for profit, you're doing this for the benefit of everybody. There would be no competing news networks. It would just be, you know, whatever source of news you want, whatever like YouTuber or news firm or like not firm necessarily, but maybe like you know, group of people would come together and create networks, you know, like again, like how we do with like YouTube now. We would have, you know, groups of people who do things and, you know, agree and disagree with each other, but again, they would have no incentive to really lie, because they would not profit from the lying in any way. Whereas now it's good to, you know, spin a story in a certain way, or, you know, do things because then you get more money. Because the point is the goal of capitalism is to make money, whereas the goal of socialism and communism is to improve society and improve the standard of living for all.
Definition of communism, Frank.
Right. And that's the, by the way, it's not just clean. It's the only one.
So what's
Wait.
Decide, and who's excluded.
Yeah.
that's a clean definition of communism, Frank.
Right.
Is deciding who gets it and who's excluded. I mean, that is not a definition of communism. And then Richard's like, it's the only one. It's like, no, dude. That's just how economies work. It's just the government. Like, who decides who gets what and who decides that? Like, that's any society. It's the answer to that question that comes out with capitalism, feudalism, or socialism, or communism, or whatever you want. Monarchism, fascism, combination of a couple of them, because they can be somewhat combined. You have, you know, social democracy, which is still capitalism, in that the, you know, ownership of the means of production, you know, is the businesses are still owned by capitalists, but things like housing, healthcare, education, transportation, and things like that are universally accessible to everybody and paid through the taxes of the rich. But that, of course, is not sustainable, because eventually those rich people are going to use their wealth to influence, you know, society and, you know, not get taxed as much. Whereas socialism cuts that out entirely, because there are no owners, there's only workers, and the workers are the ones who decide where the value is, and there's, you know, that ownership class is cut off, except for maybe people who are unemployed. But again, the workers want housing and healthcare and education and stuff like that. It makes their lives better, and it allows them to work as a job better, and so, you know, and find better jobs that suit them and that they can, you know, get around. And so they would, you know, keep that going, whereas social democracy, unfortunately, would not be sustainable. It would be better than straight up capitalism, but, you know, but it's still capitalism. It's not socialism. It's just it's just close to socialism without actually being socialism.
Right. And
Which is where the whole socialism is when the government does stuff, but that also comes from the fact that, you know, the state capitalist, you know, USSR and China.
that's the, by the way, it's not just clean. It's the only one.
It's actually
So what-
terribly dirty, and like what definition? It's not just clean. You're not even defining it. This is just this is disappointing.
Can we just linger on the definition of exploitation in
Yes.
that context?
Easy. Becomes very easy to.
I'm guaranteed he's not going to answer it. The answer to exploitation is the fact that you're selling your labor at a loss, because the capitalist needs to make profit. Since the capitalist needs to make profit, you're going to produce enough to make profit. They're going to cut out your wage, and they're going to, you know, you're selling your time at a loss so that you can produce profit for the capitalist.
Exploitation exists if and when the surplus that's produced is taken and distributed by people other than those who produced it.
Okay, so a long way of saying what I said. At least he actually answered the question correctly. That's good.
Slaves produce a surplus which the master gets.
That's...
Serfs produce.
Oh my god, where was this 5 minutes ago?
Produce a surplus which the Lord gets. Employees produce a surplus which the employer gets.
Oh,
It's
God.
very simple.
It is very simple. It didn't need to take 5 minutes to get to this point, my guy.
These are exploitative.
But That is the correct answer to the question.
Class structures, because one class produces a surplus appropriated,
That class
distributed
being the workers produce the surplus.
by another group of people.
That is appropriated, meaning taken, and distributed by the other group, the class of owners, the bourgeoisie.
Not the ones who produced it.
Yes, the owners didn't make it, but they get to take it and distribute it as they please because they own it, quote unquote.
Which creates hostility, enmity, envy,
And
anger,
poverty.
resentment, and all of the problems
And
you can
literally
lump
generates poverty. Like it creates poverty when there doesn't need to be.
under the heading class struggle. I use a metaphor, simple metaphorical story. You have two children, let's assume, and you take them to Central Park, a few blocks from here. It's a nice day, and the children are playing, and in comes one of those men with an ice cream truck comes by. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, your children see the ice cream. Daddy, get me an ice cream. So you walk over, you take some money, and you get 2 ice cream cones, and you give them to one of the children. The other one,
It's like, it's correct, but it doesn't explain how, like, why does the child, it would be like if you gave the money and then the ice cream owner got to decide who gets the ice cream. Like, that would make more sense than what he's saying.
one begins to scream.
Because,
and
like,
yell.
again, who's the worker? The children didn't do any work. Dad or you are the one who paid for the ice cream. Like, the ice cream person did the working. So, like, it unfortunately doesn't even really work. It sounds good, but it doesn't really work. But again, yeah, if you know the kids went to the ice cream, you know, the ice cream truck and were like, "Hey, I'd like some ice cream," and then the ice cream truck got to decide who gets the ice cream, that would be closer to it. But still, again, it's just there's no metaphor. It's just they, you know, like, it's like if you and your kids made dinner, but since you own the food and the kids are, you know, up to your decision making, and then you decide who gets the food and you decide you get the food, or, you know, you make them cook for you and then you get most of the food and you give them the scraps. That would be a much better metaphor. Would be if you had, you know, the family cooking dinner and you were sitting on the couch while your family makes dinner, and then you get to eat all the food and you give them your scraps. That would be a much better metaphor.
And how? Obviously. What's the issue? And you realize you've just made a terrible mistake. So you order the one you gave the 2 ice cream cones to, give one of those to your sister or your brother or whatever it is. And that's how you solve the problem.
Okay, well, this at least explains why capitalists don't want to give up their power, because yes, if the, you know, one of the kids gets both the ice cream cones, and then instead of taking the ice cream cone and giving, which would be the best way to do it, you tell the kid to give the ice cream to their sibling, and they have the ability to be like, no, actually, I'm going to keep both these ice cream cones. That's where conflict comes in, because, you know, unless you have the power to back up the being like, no, you are going to give that to your sibling because your sibling deserves ice cream too.
Until a psychologist comes along and says,
Oh my God, this is not a simple metaphor, Richard. Why is there a psychologist? You were talking about ice cream, my guy. Ugh.
you know, you didn't fix it by what you just did. You should never have done that in the first place.
All right. Well, okay. He's talking about the world and how they figured out about leftism, because again, obviously, you know, capitalism wasn't figured out immediately either. It was all it all took some time. Hello? Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I've been trying to call you.
I'm sorry, I'm streaming.
Oh, yeah, no, I was seeing if I could still get this.
Oh yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll get you later. I got you.
Do you have that bug by any chance?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
alright.
I'll talk to you later. All right. Anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, let's see if there's any more worthwhile.
My response, so you understand, all of the efforts to deal with inequality in economic, political, cultural,
Ugh.
these are all
This is so sad because he's such a smart guy. I don't know why
All-
he's doing it so badly.
giving the ice cream cone back to the kid. You should never do this in the first place.
They reallocate.
I mean, he does have a point in that. Yeah, it is kind of weird that people are like, you should never have taken away that ice cream that you gave, and because you gave it to the kid. Like if you'd mentioned that you accidentally give it to both of them to the one kid, or you give them to the one kid and you tell the kid to give them to share with the sibling and they never did, and then you force them to do it, and then the whole world shakes their finger at you for doing that. That is kind of a metaphor for socialist stigma and everything. I can see where he's coming from with there, but that's, I don't know, it's I just wish it was better, my man. Come on, you've been
Patient of
working at this for so long. You could tighten it up.
Resources creates bitterness in the
Horrible.
populace.
Look at this country
It's true.
is tearing itself.
Does, yeah. I mean, it's a good metaphor for the fact that, yeah, we've already got the ice cream in the wrong hands. It would be like, again, if someone, if a guest, in my example of the, having your family cook for you, and then you then oh dang it, my camera seems to have stopped. But anyway, what I'm going to say is that, yeah, if your family cooked for you, you ate all the food, gave them the table scraps, and then somebody came in and was like, no, that's not cool. They cooked. They should get an equal chance of eating, so that, next time around, everybody who cooked, gets an equal share, and maybe even you who didn't cook get an equal share, but at least those who cooked get as much as they need and want. And then the whole world being like, oh, you should have never done that. Oh, no, you're upsetting the natural order of things. And that, I feel like, is a lot more accurate to how things are. Because, saying that the king who gets the lion's share who didn't do anything is, that's what they said during feudalism. Like, oh, you can't get rid of the king. That's the natural order of things. It's the divine right of the kings to rule. So, it's the same thing with capitalism. It's it's the market. The market forces define things. But yeah, all right. See you next time. Like and subscribe.